Hey everybody, it's Tafony here once again. Hope you're doing well. I think it's time that we ramble about the industrial music electronics FKA Harvest Man, the Piston Honda Mark III. It sounds like this. Okay, so people always ask me, why Eurorack? What's the reason? Why do that over a DAW? Why do that over other hardware synthesizers and the like? And, not only the form factor, the simplicity of seeing all of the connections, well, most of the connections, I know there's a per module basis, but making that workflow, that creation very physical. There's just some things in Eurorack that are worth being in Eurorack for, in my opinion. And whether it's the Data Bender or Desmodus Versio, these things just aren't offered elsewhere. Now, I would love to see those things in Electron box, don't get me wrong, but some things that you just can't get elsewhere that include the Piston Honda. And I absolutely adore it. It was, even before I got into Eurorack, the first time I heard that, I was like, I don't know what I like, though. I mean, we're going back 5 years at this point. I don't know what I like in waveforms, in oscillators, but I knew Piston Honda was it, and that has remained true for 5 years since. And I have tried to swap out many a different wavetable oscillator, wavetable entire voice, and nothing's as special as the Piston Honda to me. And I'm sorry if this video might kind of just be a love letter, but I'm not out here to shill it to anyone. Everything's been said before, but hey, it's rambling about, and what's on my mind is how much I love this thing. So what is it? It is a digital wavetable oscillator. Well, it's two of them, and it actually has a little bit of complex oscillator DNA. And I'm gonna depatch this from our intro patch, and just for posterity's sake, I guess I will say another thing that you can't get in things that aren't Eurorack is the steady state fate, steady state gate. I was running that through this. I don't know if there's any reason for it on a technical level. Maybe it's just the design choices make those pairings really nice, but running digital voices through analog filters and vice versa always just seems to be a great combo. I don't know if it's just digital can be a little more harsh and precise, whereas analog's a little more gooey. We were fighting about butter metaphors for filters recently, but anyway, I don't know if it's even intentional on the part of the manufacturer's part, but it just seems like those pairings always seem to work well. And that applies to Piston Honda through steady state fate, steady state gate for me, or it applies to the Mini Freak, has those digital voices with the analog filters, and it sounds amazing too. So, but what we are here to actually talk about is the Piston, and let's simply do the output of one of the two oscillators. So, Piston Honda, I am in preset mode right now. Let's back out of preset mode. We'll get into the oscillator. So dual oscillators. I believe the original ones are single oscillator without a screen, without a preset manager. Much has also been said about the industrial music electronics and their lineage and stuff. And one thing I will just say about them, it's really cool that maybe, I don't know if cool is the right word, but it's interesting how all the previous versions, I think you can actually like get the previous versions of the Piston Honda for more than the current in production one, which the other ones have less features, but I think there is some attachment to them because they have different colorings, if that makes sense. There's some really scientific things to drill down about the about wavetable synthesis and how they alias and how they scan, and Piston Honda Mark III does a lot of different things, or gives you a lot of different options in terms of that scanning, so we'll get into all that. But I know that people actually want the previous versions of the Piston Hondas and the Hertz Donuts and the whole IME line for that matter, because they just color things a little differently depending on the versions, but we'll get into that in a moment. So Piston Honda, let's hear it. Sorry, I need to clean this up. We'll take our drums out, we'll take our distortions out, we'll take our compressor out for that matter too. We're just hearing the raw output of the Piston Honda. So this is the first oscillator. We'll take it all the way down on all fronts and it becomes a sine wave. So you have, and indicated with the chromatic scale on the screen, thank you. Screen, thank you. Chromatic scale, thank you. Frequency fine tuning. And you'll only see this fine tune knob when you're on the single oscillator. So if you select both oscillators, it'll just show you the Western scale notation of the current oscillator. So get into one oscillator to see the fine tuning of it, and it can be better adjusted here. And here is how it sounds in that first one. So I'm the last person who should be explaining wavetables to you, but basically it is a big scan of files. I understand it's not actually like 28 different MP3s. Correct me if I'm wrong. It is a whole wackitude of audio clips arranged in a table that can morph across the x-axes. And for me, before I got into Eurorack, before I got into like hardware synthesis, even just hearing this, I wanted that. And hearing it 5 years later, I still love that. Wavetable, I know it's the beginner synthesis, I know it's the juvenile one, or whatever you want to, whatever flavor you want to fling at it. I still love it. I'm sorry. And it always just sounds good, but I will say for the real magic to happen with wavetables, you got to modulate them. So Piston makes modulating it very easy. We're just going to modulate the first oscillator right now, but right now I have an LFO going. Let's send it a little bit of positive because there's an attenuator on board. Thank you very kindly. And just, I adore those sounds. Just super complex, super, I don't know if additive's the word, but just like so much to bite on, you know? And so that's across the x-axis. If we go across the y-axis, it's going to be sort of a similar thing, but in different flavors. And it's just fun to pick it up and, I don't know, fish through the wavetables and see where you land. See what winds up where when it comes to sending it modulation, and how does that land. So the z-axis will modulate both halves. And I find when you send a bunch here, it gets into like ring mod territory, or if you get too carried away with it, you get this like ringy thing, and that sounds great in my mind. I just... In the original writing of the script, I had a joke about how I was going to say, like, I was going to make a whole video where I just plays this, and I just say, yep, and then say nothing and just let it ring out for 5 minutes. I won't do that to you, but I thought, oh, well, that's my stupid sense of humor. What else needs to be said about Piston Honda other than that sound? Well, there's so much more to it. Let's take our attenuation out and just get back down to our sine wave. That's only one of the voices, too. So, I mean, that's gorgeous, but there's also FM, which is internally patched. So quickly I'll select the other oscillator and you'll see we've got two different waveforms. There's a mix output, which is summed. I don't think you can like adjust how much is in one, I don't think you can adjust how much is of voice A versus voice B. It's just summed in, but you know, you get a third output, that's really appreciated. Mix it somewhere else down the line, but you can adjust both waveforms here for even more wackiness. Let's send that LFO again. And like, if the beautiful sound wasn't complex enough, and then when I say beautiful, I mean I love it. It's kind of nasty in a great way. If it wasn't complex enough, throw another one at it. Right now I have it in link mode, so they'll stay in tune to each other, but you don't have to do that. You can make something completely dissonant. Again, you can make your noise record on this thing. You could tune it to an interval, so if we have C here, maybe I'll make a power chord by tuning this to D. Or up an octave. And just yes. Now, I wanted to show that because we're going to go back to oscillator A. And I'll also say there's no shortage of depth just using one oscillator, but of course it's Eurorack. We're going to go to the 9s with everything. There's internal patch of through 0 FM, which, Sean, if you're watching this, you were asking me if FMing a wavetable is a thing. Of course it is a thing, and the Piston Honda will do this with another wavetable source. And I'll show you. It kind of just gets insane. Link it. There's just like, some mathematician here would probably say, let's pretend there's a finite amount of positions on the 3 faders, and in the FM there is like an essentially infinite amount of sound, of different sounds that are hidden in this thing, right? I know that goes for every module, but like, just like, if it wasn't enough, FM, of course. And then in the menus, there's an option where you can replace. So I'll show you this here in default. You can FM it externally. So I'm going to use the Mind Phaser VCO to use FM on it. And if we bring that in, it's LFO, so we're getting portamento. But if we get up to audio rate, which is of course where I want to be, we don't have to use that other voice as that source, right? So we can do that. And I think this, just using a triangle wave, makes the FM a little more palatable than sending a crazy waveform at it. Although you can get basic waveforms out of that oscillator on board, but again, this thing is endless, right? And if you want to use the internal modulation, not override it, there's a good comparison. Okay, simple waveform for FM, complex waveform for FM. You can, in the settings, I'm just going to jump into those real quick. Sorry. In the settings, I'm in unison mode right now. We'll talk about that in a moment. But in the settings, you can actually change the CV to modulate the amount instead of overriding the FM, which isn't something I want to do. But just to say that, like, there's no shortage of depth. And maybe while we're in the menu, this is a good time to talk about the other modes. Let's get back into oscillator A. And this is in unison, but you can bring it down into a single voice, which I don't really see benefit to. It just makes it sound a little thinner. And yeah, maybe if you're stacking it, this is something you want. Again, the possibilities are endless, but I just find the unison just sounds better. And there's no reason to not use it, unless, you know, maybe, I don't know if that unison, if you applied it to oscillator B, would apply to the FM too, but yeah. And the other thing is, it's so hard to, like, as long as the link is on, I find it so hard to get bad sounds out of it, right? Even, let's try another thing here. So, we're listening to that in the unison mode. There's also an octave mode, plus or minus, which I have reserved. I want all my unison because I really like how it sounds. But then if I go in and do this to oscillator B, I have it actually in the octave down, because I feel like sub-octaves, especially on super complex voices, can really help make up for how brittle they can be at times. So let's bring that up. Unison. Yeah, you do hear how that's affecting the FM. That's funny. So let's mix them in, take the FM out. And yeah. Remember what I said about that video idea where I was just going to say, ram me about Piston Honda. Like, this is why synthesizers to me. And I sold this thing at one point before. Don't ask me why. I mean, I sell everything. A new shiny thing came up, a new shiny Wavetable oscillator came up, and I sold the Piston Honda for it. Why? Here I am buying it back again. But I will never sell the Piston Honda again. That was the stupid thing. But thankfully they are readily available. Anyway, I like to use oscillator B as a sub-oscillator, but what we can do is use an external oscillator to replace it. So let's just send an oscillator in, external in, and then I want to just patch B in. Go back to selecting our B oscillator. Got to deselect A, and then we hit mode. Yeah. Using an external oscillator, which I think yeah. I'm not entirely sure where I would use this, but oh, you can do wavetable scanning to the external oscillator too? Does that make it phase modulation? Okay. This is like a... I'm thinking like all-pass filtery stuff here, right? How does that apply to an external oscillator? Okay, let's go back to the mix mode then. Wow. That actually sounds really good. Maybe we need to... Again, I just feel like you could make records upon records on something like this, right? Just FM it internally. Go back to the wavetable. Yeah. Okay, start listening to oscillator A again. And we're going to select it. Octave jumping. Hello. Okay. Well, I didn't mean to do that. We want to select oscillator A only. Select. Huh. Oh, I guess that's a button combo for switching the unison modes. That's interesting. There's a performance piece for you. So you can disable different morphs. I'd say just leave them, and then, I mean, there's probably a reason why you might want to do that, but I'd say just leave them and don't use them if you don't want to do that. Now, there is differences in the scanning, so let's go in and scan through our X table. And then this is sort of my understanding from someone I was talking to recently was that this is a bit of the bread and butter of what makes all the different wavetable oscillators have a little bit of their own flavor, I suppose. So here, let's take out our take out our modulation and just manually scan through. So this is orthodox, and I think this will try and smooth out all of the different transitions. No filtering, no nothing, by the way. This is just raw one oscillator here. So that's orthodox. Degenerate, which I know there's bit reduction on here somewhere too, where it'll like snap differently. Let's go problematic. Do I have to hit enter? Degenerate. Not hearing too much difference here if I'm being honest. Here. bring in a little bit of FM. Okay, so hold this down, hit select, no, mode, and then we'll bring unison off just to demonstrate this. Octaves off, morph enabled for all, and then tone. We got orthodox. This is like the regular mode. Degenerate, which includes some bit reduction. Problematic. Pathological. Is a combination of the bit reduced version and the other mode, but I think these just affect how this is scanned. So if I bring in some modulation, this is square wave. Sorry, we definitely don't want to modulate with that. Let's go. Yeah. Let's hear how these change. Pathological, problematic, degenerate, orthodox, subtle. And then the last thing I'm going to show you too is, so you can save presets on this thing, which is very cool, because I feel like it's really fun to explore this and just lock down some really cool patches that you're able to create. But naturally, because again, modular, you can surf through these presets with CV, because if there wasn't enough layers upon layers of, so I needed to link those. If there wasn't layers upon layers of modulatability, why don't you turn the entire thing into a wavetable of its own by giving yourself access to preset scanning? So, and I think this is just gonna hit a new audio rate. Anyway, I think maybe I'll start a later one, and then if we do gates, it'll jump back and forth between two. Chaos. Less FM maybe. Actually, I feel like the FM is probably saved in the preset too, but yeah, these are all default presets, but hey, that's what we're here for. Bring some reverb in. We're allowed to have fun in Eurorack, so I'm distorting it. Desmodos Versio. Bring in some modulation of our tables. I don't know if this will be switching too fast to even do it, but hey, let's try it. Yeah, let's run it through that gate again, and then maybe we'll send it some pitch, and we'll play us out with that. Bill O'Reilly said, to play us out. What does it mean to play us out? Okay, let's bring it in. I just love that fax machine scanning sound. Genuinely. Kicks in. Ultra kick. Distortion up. And that'll play us out. Love the Piston Honda. Love you. Thank you for watching. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.